What to expect in the first 10 days is just really extreme conditions, especially if I'm going to be leaving from up north, which will be at the Santa Cruz. So I've got to try and get from that point at Santa Cruz, the lighthouse, out away from the coastline across the bay by nightfall. So the objective is probably leave quite early in the morning from Santa Cruz Lighthouse, get across that bay, which is roughly about 28 miles, 25 miles, I think. Which means that I can get off and outside of that point. The wind comes in at a northwesterly angle, so I've got to try and get across it, and to get roughly, by the time I get to Point Princess over here, is actually, I need to be roughly about 5 to 10 miles out, which I want to do before I get to dusk, which I should roughly get to probably about 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. And then the wind sort of starts, instead of pulling into the bay a little bit, what it does is it deflects off the coastline around Monterey, and it deflects and it sort of starts pulling in and sort of following the trajectory around down the coast, which goes into the Big Sur area. And once I get around that, that's why I've got to get like 5 to 8 miles out from Monterey, which is over here. I've got to get to about over there, which is about 10 miles out, so that I can get around Point Sur Lighthouse, which is probably the most western tip, as in the most westerly direction, before the coastline starts bending in, because then the wind follows this route. So it's still blowing me a little bit on towards the shore up until this point, and then it goes literally down the coastline. So even in worst case scenario, even if I go with the wind, I'm still not going to hit the coast down here, because I'm going to go with it. But until I get past that point, it's still going to be blowing me slightly on to the coastline. So my objective is to be able to get out across the conditions to about 10 miles off the Monterey Bay area by nightfall, and then to be able to still carry on going out and around to past the point where the coastline starts bending in. And then once I get to daylight the following morning, I can start moving my way out further past the coastline. But this area over here is synonymous, which is roughly a 200-mile stretch, 180-mile stretch, synonymous with the most probably extreme conditions and the most intensified conditions on this coastline. So I've already prepped for that. Thank goodness I already did the test run last year, which I went down this whole coastline all the way down to Morro Bay. So I'm very aware of what I'm going to be getting and the conditions that I'm going to be getting in this area. I'm prepped for it being really cold. Last year I got a lot of fog, which I wasn't really prepared for, with a lot of wind. Normally you don't get intense fog with a lot of breeze. So now I've got backup systems to be able to allow for that. And also my drogue systems. I've also got a parachute anchor, which I can deploy when I need to be able to sleep, because if the weather's really bad at night, it's too dangerous to be able to wing out at night during really hectic conditions. So I'll put the drogue out, parachute anchor, which stabilizes me. I can get a little bit of rest until daylight, and then carry on going in the morning. And I've got a backup parachute anchor as well that I can also deploy. And with the foils that I have and the centerboard, it makes my craft very stable when I'm under really extreme conditions, weather and wind and waves, which is what I'm going to experience in this sort of area, which is about 180 miles, as I said, which I need to get. I need to get very far west of this point over here, which is called Point Conception, which is also known as like the Californian Cape Horn. This area over here is synonymous with a lot of shipwrecks, a lot of really, really hectic and intense conditions. So I've got to make sure that by the time I get down to this point over here, I'm about 50 to 100 miles offshore. Probably about 50 miles, which means that I'm out of and away from this area and get way west of the Channel Islands. But by the time I get to this point, which will roughly be 180 miles, which is roughly 6 days. So 5 to 6 days to get down this stretch over here, which will get me into a really good position to be able to get out into the trades in this area over here. And that's what the first sort of 6 to 10 days will be, is really just fighting out across the conditions to the point that I can start getting into the trades, which will be somewhere around about here, somewhere around this area and just further south. that chart doesn't actually go all the way down to where I need to show you, because it's roughly around the Guadeloupe area, so it's roughly around here. So if you see the end of the United States is here, Guadeloupe is over here, so I'm going to be coming all the way down the coast from San Francisco all the way down there, the Channel Islands. There's Guadeloupe over here, so I'll be hopefully into this area over here, which is where the trades are, which is about 300 miles, which is roughly about 10 to 12 days. And as long as I can get out to that point by then happy days. And as I say, plain sailing, but definitely not plain sailing, because it'll be not so easy winging. But that's your summary. I hope by the time you get this update, I'll already be somewhere in that zone and be a little warmer than the first 10 days, because that first 10 days is really cold, really intense, really hectic, and really unpleasant. But sometimes you just got to work through the unpleasantness and know that you got to get through the good, get through the bad to be able to appreciate the good. And I think like the climate challenge and dealing with climate change, it is a challenge, but we've got to step up, we've got to take action, we've got to push through the challenges to be able to succeed and to be able to achieve our goals and dreams. Chris, Transpac Wing Project, out.